Heaven help me, today I trained a group of college professors in how to present. Professors are an interesting bunch. The gentleman that I met with just before the training said, look, they're about to file into the room, but I want to tell you in advance that you shouldn't confuse high levels of intelligence and common sense with the idea of a professor. That was my first warning. And I must say, they were a lovely group of people. However, the presentation skills were, how does one say, not so great without being offensive? And as I worked with this group, I tried to analyze what the core problem was, what was at the heart of it. And it really comes down to one thing, and I think this is a mistake that a great number of very intelligent, very technically minded people make. What they tend to do is they think of a presentation as dissemination of information, i.e., I have to work through a number of bullet points. That is not the nature of a good presentation. A good presentation is a sales pitch for an idea. I'll give you a practical example of that. One of my groups had a project in which they had to give some feedback. And the basic idea was they had gone and studied various varsities around the world, places like Oxford and Harvard, and their goal was to find a student counseling system that could ward off depression, suicide, and some really serious problems among the student body. And they had come up with some fascinating insights and a brilliant program. But you'd never know it by watching their presentation. What they did was they went item by item through the things that they had studied and learned and discovered. What they should have done is stood up and said, we found a way to save lives, and it doesn't even cost anything. It's simply a matter of willpower. Here's how we can make things better for our students going forward. But they didn't say that, not even once. There was no sales pitch for an idea. Instead, it was dissemination of bullet points and coverage of facts, fact by fact. There was no life, no energy, no spontaneity. And it's the switch from thinking about a presentation as being all of the information followed by a little message, versus thinking about a presentation as the message, supported by a few facts. The people who get the latter method correct change hearts and minds. Most people, when they think of a presentation, think, how do I get all of the facts onto the PowerPoint slide? That is the wrong orientation. It's not about the facts, it's about the message. If you can make the message come alive, you have accomplished your point, even if you leave out a fact or two. The facts can go into the annexure, they can go into the handout afterwards, they can be the piece of paper that you give to people as they leave the door. But that live connection and making the idea come alive, that's what it's all about. So, how do you do it? When you begin, you do not launch your first slide and think, okay, how many facts can I get onto slide number 1? No, you're not even ready yet. What you've got to ask yourself is, what's the point? What's the message? What's the purpose? If the purpose is to get people to buy into one idea or change their minds about one thing, then that's all you need to do. But boy, do you need to accomplish that. A good presentation is a sales pitch for an idea. It is not dissemination of information. Even if it is dissemination of information, even if you have a lot of facts and figures to cover, there is nevertheless a point. If you get to the why, to the point, the meat, the meaning, via the facts, that's fine. Most people don't. They simply stick to the bullet points, the charts, the graphs, and the dissemination. That is not the point. Make that one change and you can make it come alive. Now here's the problem with that. Technically minded people have a very hard time letting go of the old model. Possibly one of the great problems with the professor types of the world is not that they haven't had public speaking practice. The problem is they've had 20 years of the wrong, bad habits. And it's as though they've worn themselves into a groove. That's the way they do things, and they are only marginally open to learning new ways of doing things. Give me an amateur instead. I can make such a person shine. But 20 years of practice makes permanent is very difficult to undo. Nevertheless, that's all it comes down to. What's the point? What's the message? What's the meaning? Make that come alive. Use as many or as few facts as you need in order to get to that goal. But that is the goal. Get that orientation correct, you can light up neurons. If you spend a fair amount of time in front of audiences, please check out my book, How to Make Your Point Without PowerPoint, in which I rant on about the agony of death by PowerPoint and how to solve it. It's available globally from www.audible.com. Just search for Douglas Kruger where you will find all of my books.